All right, we're back. I was getting pretty close to the max on there, and so I just wanted to take a little break and come back. Les Paul. We're talking about Les Paul and his passing of just a couple weeks ago. Les Paul made possible something in his own little bitty workshop garage that makes what Paul McCartney did, what everybody in the recording industry, especially rock and roll, I don't know if they did it as much in jazz, but in every other field of music, it's been done. Multi-tracking. I want to talk about multi-tracking. Okay, first off, you got a tape recorder. Ampex at the time made the best audio reel-to-reel tape recorders. And Les Paul, what he was doing, he had two record lathes at the time, record cutters. And a lot of you young people said, well, what the hell is a record? A record was a round wax disc with a hole in it. And, of course, he was using lacquer, folks, lacquer. He would put it on the machine. He would record into it his guitar. Let's say just the rhythm part. Then play that through a mixer with his other another guitar onto another recording lathe, which would record the original guitar part plus anything new he was adding, which might be the bass line. Then he would take that record and back through the mixer and onto a new disc, record Mary Ford's first vocal, back again her second vocal, back again her third vocal, back again his first solo, back again his second solo. He might take 10 discs to get a perfect 10-track multi-track part on a disc, which was very time-consuming and very expensive because those discs were not cheap. Even though, I mean, this was 1940-something, those discs were not cheap. You know, you have a piece of aluminum with lacquer sprayed over top of it. It was not very cheap in those days. And then he would take that, of course, to Capitol Records and say, here's my master. And they would press from there. Then, when tape came along, when Ampex came out with tape, Les Paul designed, and they had Ampex build it, and they had no fucking idea what they were doing. They said, we'll build it. He said, build me this machine. He basically designed for them, with a recording head, a sound-on-sound 4-track recording machine, and he said, I want the tape to go with it. Where you first pass of the tape, you can add your rhythm guitar. Second pass of the tape, your lead guitar. Second pass the bass. Third pass this. And then record all that onto another piece of tape, come back and keep doing it and build it up. They've got now, I mean, up to like 32 tracks on one piece of tape, which is about that tall. Very, skinny, but about that tall. But I do it on the computer with my studio, my multi-track. But basically, and I used to do it tape to tape. I had a sound-on-sound recorder where I could add one track and go back, add the other track, and then run that through a mixer and record all that into another tape, adding something new, and then going back and adding. And what happens over that after about the third or fourth pass, you start getting some generation loss. So you got, and then he comes up with phasing. He comes up with delay. All the stuff that we use when we make music. Had it not been for Les Paul, there'd be no multi-track recorder. There would be no digital delay, no analog delay. There would be no phasing. There would be no Les Paul guitars. And I tell you, a Les Paul guitar, in my opinion, is the best blues guitar electric blues guitar that you can have, the best rock and roll sound you can get, and they sweeten up for a beautiful jazz sound. They're okay for country. The best country guitars are Fender Telecasters and Stratocasters. Les Paul had a deal cut with Gibson. They would make these guitars, and they didn't sell all that great back in the 50s. They were a custom, I think, went for $285. And they didn't make them simultaneously like they do now. They made them, the first year they would make the gold top. Gold top with P90s and a trapeze type bridge. Later the bridge bolted into the body. It was a bridge slash tailpiece. Then they had the bridge slash tailpiece stop that was bolted into the body. Then they came out with a pneumatic bridge and humbuckers in 1957, humbucker pickups, which canceled out the 60-cycle hum that you got from a single coil pickup, which really quietened them up and really made them really warm sounding. Dan McCarthy invented the humbucker pickup, or McCarty, and let's see where I'm at on time. I'm fine. Gibson started putting this combination on all their electric guitars. From the nut to the bridge, to the pneumatic bridge, every guitar was exactly the same. Scale length might have been a little different, but not much. Gibson pretty much used 24.5 scale length. But Les Paul designed these guitars. And like I say, the first ones were gold tops. Then they come out with custom. I think a custom was in 1954 with black covered single coil pickups. And that guitar was called the Black Beauty. And those were not made with maple tops. Those were a carved mahogany top. All the other Les Pauls had a maple top. Then they came out with the Holy Grail in 1959. The Cherry Sunburst Standard. That was the guitar. And then they stopped making that single cutaway archtop Les Paul guitar and started making what is known today as the SG. But they were called Les Pauls back in those days because I had a 61 Les Paul Special with an SG body. But on the headstock, it said Les Paul. A buddy of mine was looking one time at a white SG Custom that was actually a Les Paul because it had Les Paul on it. And it was a Les Paul Custom. Many stories, and you see pictures of Les Paul playing these. Many stories about why they went to those and why they changed the name later on to SG. And all SG stands for is solid guitar. One story you would hear would be that Les Paul actually did not like that design. But I got a book called the Real Les Paul book, and it's a big, thick book about like that talks about the evolution of the Les Paul from day one, from the log all the way up to everything they've made up to that certain point, which was, I probably bought the book about 15 years ago. In the 60s, when Les Paul and Mary Ford got divorced, Les Paul was making, I think he was getting $100 per guitar produced from Gibson. And when they got divorced, Mary Ford was going to get some money from him, of course, as the divorce is always decreed. He didn't want her getting a bunch of his money, so he told Gibson, take my name off of it, put something else on it. That way she's not getting part of that $100 I'm getting for that guitar. So, all right. Well, I'm going to take another short little break. We'll continue this thing about Les Paul. I might have to do a totally separate video about campaign finance reform. We'll be right back, folks, with part 3 of my tribute to Mr. Les Paul.